Okay, I was in a lot of them, so I'll start out with the free
one-
speech movement and then work my way through, okay? I was in the free speech movement. I became active in it. I'd been active politically on campus in some left-wing groups like Slate, which ran candidates in the student body elections at Cal. We ran on a slate of not wanting to just discuss should we have French fries in the Bears lair, but should we support fair housing? Should we support the civil rights movement, which was going on at the time in the South, things like that. So I was involved sort of to begin with, but the free speech movement was a real eye-opener for me because it was a much more massive movement than anything I had been involved with before. Like I remember before I'd been in the civil rights movement, and we'd have small demonstrations of 200, 300 people. And we'd say, okay, well, that's good. And then I remember the first demonstration where we had over 800 people, and it was at the Sheraton Palace, and we circled the entire block. We went all four sides of Sheraton Palace. We were able to circle it. And I said, my God, we've got so many people out here. And it was like that with the free speech movement. We started out very small, and we were... The major thing that set everything off was I happened to be in the plaza staffing a table, and we set up tables that were illegal at the time. We were told by the chancellor that they were illegal tables, that we couldn't set them up on the stairs of Sproul Plaza. So we set up the tables. We were told we could not set up tables that would try to raise money for off-campus issues. So all of us were trying to raise money for the civil rights movement. And other things too. Some of the young Republicans put up tables to support Republican candidates off campus, a number of other things like that. And the police drove on campus. I can't believe they did this. They drove on campus, they got out of the car, they went up to this guy, Jack Weinberg, who had been a graduate student but was not registered on campus at the time. They said, are you a student? He said, well, no. So they said, well, we're arresting you for being a non-student on campus. They dragged him to the police car, and while they were doing that, a bunch of people all sat down in front of the police car and said, let's just stop them from taking him off campus. I said, you're crazy, the cop will just run you over. And they said, no, if there are enough of us, we'll be all right. So we all sat there around the car, and as we sat there, more and more people started coming around and sitting around the car. And there were like 1,000, and then more than 1,000. And then people said, well, let's talk about why we're here. So everybody was very respectful. You had to take off your shoes, and you stood on the car. We got a generator from somebody else's car, and got a microphone, and people just started getting up and speaking, talking about why we were there, why we thought the issue of free speech was important, why we thought it was important that we should be able to organize funding for off-campus activities like the civil rights movement. For many of us, the civil rights movement was extremely important. Mario had just come back from Mississippi Freedom Summer, where the 3 people had been killed during the summer, and I had tried to go, but I was under 21, and my parents would not sign the signature to let me go, and so I couldn't go. They were right. I was really naive. I said, oh, they would never harm an Asian woman, and I'm so little. Why would they want to harm me? Well, these racists, they didn't care if you were a woman. They didn't care what you were. If you were down there to be against the status quo, they were going to get you. They were very violent. And I had a lot of friends who went down there, got beaten up, and it was really terrible. So anyway, so many of us felt very strong that the civil rights movement had to be supported by any means. And so that was really the beginning of the free speech movement. And we were able to reach out and convince more and more people that we were right. After that, I went on and I was arrested at Sproul Hall, and I served 30 days in jail. We went lip, and so they called that resisting arrest. And so I served 30 days in jail for trespassing on campus and resisting arrest. And also, after that, many of us wanted to continue being active. So we were looking around and we said, well, there's this war going on in Vietnam. Maybe and there had been a teach-in in Michigan, the University of Michigan. So we said, let's organize a teach-in here at Cal. So that's what we did. We organized a teach-in, a 3-day teach-in, and we tried to get all sides to come in. We got the State Department. We wanted everybody to come in and present their side of it. And so that was the beginning of the anti-Vietnam War movement. And I was part of that. I was part of the Stop the Draft Week. I was on the executive committee for that and for a whole series of other things. Out in the free speech movement, we had an executive committee, and anybody could join the executive committee. Representing every organization had two members, and it was very, very democratic. We would sit and we'd meet every day, and we would discuss out what happened during the day, what kind of response did we get from people, and what did we think we had to do next. And everybody would be able to speak, and we would talk, we would take a vote, and we would do what we said we would do in the vote. And then the steering committee would get together, write the leaflet that night, and then in the morning, and people would run it off, and early in the morning, starting at 7:30 in the morning, we would be out at Sather Gate passing out leaflets to everybody, telling them what had happened and everything. So I found that way that there were several things that came out. First, you have democratic discussion. Secondly, you implement what you do. I had been a member of SDS, Students for a Democratic Society. We had great discussions. We'd have votes, and they didn't mean anything because everybody would go off and do their own thing. And so you never, you think, okay, well, we've decided on the strategy. This is a great strategy, and then nobody would implement it, or you'd be trying to implement it, but somebody would be off doing something else. And so, but all of us would work on doing the same thing. And then if we said, oh, this didn't work well at all, like we had a couple of times, we had total duds of stuff that we did where we'd call for something and nobody would show up, and we'd say, oh my God, what did we do wrong? So then we'd have to sit and discuss it, and sometimes the people we had said, oh no, you're totally wrong about that, they were right. So then we'd try what they had said. So it was good. You got a feel for how democracy works, and how you could reach out to people and you can change people's minds. And that, I think, was really important for us, knowing that you could change people's minds and bring people in who would have dismissed you a few months earlier. And that's real important, knowing that you can change people's minds. It's important for movements of social change, because otherwise, we always start out real small. We never start out that big. So if we can win people over, and the way you win people over is by telling them what's going on and explaining the issues and explaining what you're doing and why you think it's important that they join you. And then in '69, there was the Third World Liberation Front strike, where we were inspired by San Francisco State. I happened to be there one of the times when the police came and just were beating everybody up at San Francisco State. It was one of the scariest days of my life. And but we thought it was extremely important because a lot of us, we didn't know our own history. We're not taught our own history. I know I had just started to find out some of the history about what had happened. Why was Jim Crow segregation in the South after we won the Civil War? It seemed really strange to me. And there had been, all of the historians at the time had never really investigated that from that point of view. They had all taken the Southern point of view. Oh yeah, well, there was this sort of, the Bourbons won, so they were able to push back Reconstruction and all, but it was never clear why. And so, you wanted to know more history, not just our history, not just Black people's history, but Asians. I had no idea about a lot of it. I knew anecdotal history, but there wasn't much written. And so we said we have to be able to tell our own history and study our own history and have that be available to us, because otherwise we've been taught we are inferior. We don't look right? We're not beautiful, blonde, blue-eyed, right? And so we're not we could never aspire to be like that. I mean, there's no way that I could ever assimilate, right? I mean, this Asian face is going to stay Asian. And if we don't know our own history, then we aren't going to be able to be proud of ourselves, to take pride in who we are, and to be able to stand up for ourselves and all. So I thought the TWLF strike was extremely important, and it was interesting because I participated in strike after strike at Cal. I was thrown out of school 4 times. It took me 4 years to get a master's degree because I was thrown out of school every time for speaking over an illegal microphone. They wouldn't give us permission to have rallies on campus, so they would say, no, that's an illegal microphone. You cannot use any microphones on sprawl steps. And so we would violate it all the time to organize, stop the draft week or whatever. So anyway, and every time we were able to win. We didn't win everything, and it always disappointed me. I'd say, well, we didn't win all of the things that we were fighting for, but we would win enough so that we would have enough confidence that the next time if we struck, we knew we could get support, and we could probably win most of our demands or some of our demands. Like, you would get people put back in school again with no penalties. You would get, and we won things like the fact that we were able to have certain free speech rights, like we could have tables up on campus to get donations for other causes outside campus, things like that. So that gave me confidence, and so I think that all of these movements were extremely important. We were able to win the Third World Studies, which was extremely wonderful, and get our own people to become scholars. In all of the movements in which I participated, we'd always start out small, and there would be people who would say, oh, you're so stupid, Why do you think that's such an important issue? Who cares about that? Like, we started out with the whole thing with the civil rights movement where people said, look, that's down in the South. We don't have any of that up here. We're fine in the North. No, what are you worried about that for? Let them fight it out in the South. And, you'd have to explain, well, no, what happens to people there really does affect us, too. It's not like it's something that you can just wall off. It's something that affects everyone. And so it made it important. It makes you, it's good to have people in opposition to you because it makes you sharpen up your thinking and listen to what they're saying. Why are they objecting to this? And then trying to answer their arguments. So I don't know if that answers your question.
It did.
Because like in the free speech movement, we had people who were real right-wing who were in there too, who totally disagreed with us about the civil rights movement, but we all agreed about free speech. They wanted to be able to raise money for the causes they believe in, and they believed that all of us should have the right of free speech. So we all were able to unite around that. And that's an important thing too. If you have one single thing you're fighting for, and you can get people who disagree about many other things, but who all agree on that to participate, you are strong. You're much stronger. And it's like with the Vietnam War movement too. A lot of people at first they thought it was right. Many people thought the Vietnam War was right and that we should be there. And then as the war went on, and as people started seeing what was actually going on there, and we were able to explain it better and to have more and more demonstrations, it's like we ran into GIs who said, I was against the war, but I didn't want to say anything. I thought I was all by myself. And then you guys came on out. And I thought, oh, I'm not alone. There are other people who think this war is wrong, and then there would be a few GIs who would join us in uniform, which took a lot of guts because, they could have been arrested and everything else. But they came on out and they said no. And when people in Vietnam saw that, some of the GIs there saw that, they said, oh my God, people who are in uniform, they're just like us. They are against the war too, so it's not wrong. And so people get more courage too, because the more people you see out there who are out there, then the more you feel like, okay, I'm not alone on this. I'm not going to be the only one standing up and saying no. Okay, there are many. One is my strike, with the steelworkers striking. This is the first strike in 35 years that they've had at the oil refineries. It's my union. I retired. I was an oil refinery worker, and I was an operator in the delayed coker unit. And it's a very important strike because it's about safety issues, as we were talking about before. Safety not only for the workers there, but safety in the community. So there are all sorts of issues with fatigue, with not doing maintenance correctly, with not having personnel enough. And it all comes down to cost cutting. A lot of industries have been cost cutting. The nurses just want to strike at Kaiser. They got 500 new nurses are going to be hired there because of safety. It's the same issue everywhere, where they don't hire enough people to do the job right. And so that's one thing. Another thing is on immigration. I think that the immigration, people should be free to immigrate. I think we should have free borders because, well, I have to say, my grandfather came here illegally. He was stowed away on a ship, and when he was discovered, they let him stay on the ship until they were 3 miles outside the city limits, and then they threw him overboard and said, "Can't be on the ship, sink or swim."
Near the Golden Gate Bridge, and you had to swim. My grandma was a muni bus driver, and so like she said that she remembers, because she's from Texas, but she just remember like taking a break and there was just people swimming, and she was just like,
What?
"What's going on?"
Well, that may have been them.
But I think it was like later on though.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, he was real lucky because what happened was, so he was here illegally, and then the 1906 earthquake happened and all the records got destroyed. So he said, "Hey, I was here legally, I had my papers, but they got burned up." So he was lucky. But, you know, a lot of people aren't that lucky. So I think immigrants deserve the chance they're here. They should have the same chance everybody else does. This is a country that was founded on immigration. And immigrants all have rights. And there's nobody here who's an alien. That's what they called my grandparents, too, was aliens ineligible for citizenship. They were not allowed to become citizens of the U.S. No Asians were allowed to become citizens of the U.S. until 1956. Yeah. So if you were born here, it was all right. But if you were an immigrant, you weren't allowed to ever become it. So they use that word with us, too. So we're very, we don't believe anybody's an alien. We're all human beings. We all deserve the best.